Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Thursday afternoon. It's August the 7th. This is Let's Talk Tropics. Hopefully you're having a great week so far. Good news is we don't have anything really threatening the Gulf waters this time around. Bad news is we are going to be pushing farther into August, and likely we're going to see a lot more activity out over the Atlantic, and some of the models are throwing out some interesting solutions beyond the 10-day forecast. We'll look at some of that and kind of go over the different model runs from run to run so you can see all of the different solutions, because most likely as you're scrolling through some of your social media, you're seeing probably the most extreme stuff that's out there. And models do change, and it's not just the differences between models, but it's also the differences between the same models run. Let's say the GFS that ran this morning and the next one that ran this afternoon, and so on and so on. There are some big differences there, so we're going to try to clear some of that stuff up. But there is a lot out there, and Dexter is in its final stretch here too, leaving the coordinates up for right now, but we've also got a new entry, which is 96L, which is out in the middle part of the Atlantic. So we'll get to all that coming up here in just a bit. Right now, 90 degrees here in Lafayette. Feels more like 100 thanks to that higher dew point. It was a sweaty walk this morning when I walked around the neighborhood. Humidity at 63%, winds northeast at 5, and the pressure is running at about 30.13. Now, there are some showers that are on the radar. Most of the action is along the coast and out in the offshore waters, but I do believe we're going to probably see some more action developing over the course of the day. Let's go ahead and pull up the Hammond radar as well, so you can kind of see that there's a lot more action out in the offshore waters south of New Orleans and south of Mississippi. That old frontal boundary is still out there, kind of just north of our region, but south of that region, we're still seeing some of those showers and thunderstorms. So that's going to be an issue for mainly the offshore waters. But as we go into the afternoon, we'll get that 30 to 40% coverage that we normally see during the month of August. Well, we got a lot of sunshine here in the hub city, mixed in with some clouds. Breaux Bridge looking good there. Henderson, a lot of sunshine right now. Farther up to the north, Alexandria looking good. Opelousas, good afternoon. You've got some hot temperatures there too. And then also back here in Lafayette along I-10 near Ambassador Caffrey, everything looking fine right now. So on the big picture, what's been really dictating our weather locally here over the last several days, a bit of a trough that's kind of stretching here from the middle part of the country all the way down toward the Gulf Coast. And we've seen those scattered showers and thunderstorms, typical summertime type of weather. We've got a little bit of an easterly wave over here that's going to try to make a run for the western, or rather the eastern part of the Gulf. At this point, this does not look like it's going to be anything interesting as it moves west, but it will start to increase our chances for rain coming up a little bit later on. Big ridge of high pressure out to the west will keep things dry over the Texas Gulf Coast, and some of that is actually going to edge into portions of western Louisiana as well. So your bigger rain chances are going to be from Lafayette eastward, and your lower rain chances will be from Lafayette out toward the west. Looking at the Gulf, again, really not a lot going on. We still got that old frontal boundary that's kind of draped right about in here. Sorry about that, telestrator. It likes to go to a corner for some reason. But we are seeing that, even a little bit of some smoke in the upper levels coming in from some of those Canadian wildfires, believe it or not. But south of the front, where things are really, really humid, we're getting some showers and thunderstorms. And again, there's some moisture over here too that's going to kind of work off toward the west. I think we're going to be on the northern fringe of that. So again, the farther offshore that remains, the lesser our rain chances are going to be. And for anybody who wants to go out and play in the waters, not a bad day out there. Winds will generally be out of the southwest, 5 to 10 knots. Seas 1 to 2 feet. And out on the offshore platforms, things are looking good out there too. Real Real quick tour of the beaches. Panama City looks pretty today. So does Orange Beach, Alabama, although it looks like there's a bit of a shower, or maybe some haze or smoke. Now, I think that's a little bit of a shower that's there off toward the east, looking toward Florida. Out here at Dauphin Island, we're looking okay. Got some storms in the offshore waters, and farther to the west over toward Galveston. Not looking too bad there. We're going to see some showers and thunderstorms firing up there along the coast as we go into the afternoon. So let's go ahead and start out with Dexter. Dexter is now an extratropical system, and what that means is it no longer has those tropical characteristics. It's not a cold core system or a warm core system. Hurricanes and tropical storms are warm core systems, and they create their own energy, while cold core systems, or extratropical or non-tropical lows, use the energy that's around them to get their strength. So this has transitioned over the last couple of days. The National Hurricane Center issuing its final advisory on Dexter, but believe it or not, Dexter is probably going to strengthen as a cold core type of storm over the northern part of the Atlantic. So even though it's no longer a tropical storm, and this is the last advisory, you see those wind speeds are up to 60, and there are some forecasts that throw this pretty close to hurricane strength, but again, not an official tropical system because it's no longer a warm core system. Looking out at the 7-day outlook, again, we've got that little area off the Atlantic coast, a little bit lower of a chance now for development there. There's a lot of wind shear, but that's kind of along a front. Might have a chance coming up in a couple of days, and it'll probably follow in the footsteps of Dexter. If it does become something tropical or subtropical, it's probably going to transition into a regular low pressure area pretty quick. And then as we look at week 2, things still looking pretty active according to the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook, and we do have a lot that's kind of showing up in the models now for week 2, and then week 3 kind of backs off just a little bit. But of course, when we start looking that far out, things change day by day. So let's start with the East Coast satellite, and again, the area that we're kind of watching here is a little bit of a low pressure area right about in that area, and of course there's an old frontal boundary that's kind of over here too. So this is going to be festering out over the Gulf Stream waters, fairly warm conditions there out off the Atlantic coast. Most likely this is going to get picked up by the westerlies and yanked back out to sea, and at this point it's got a pretty low end chance for development, so not too excited about that particular one. I think we're going to get a little bit more, things are going to get a little more interesting out in the Atlantic Ocean rather than here closer to the U.S. eastern seaboard. So let's take a quick tour around the Caribbean as well. Central America, pretty nice day there. Not a lot of rain from Central America all the way down to Panama. There are some tropical waves that are moving over the southern part of the Caribbean Sea, but so far most of those are not producing anything except for these areas down here by Trinidad and Tobago. Right in there, they've had a lot of heavy rain, and I've been hearing about some flooding over parts of the lower Windward Islands as well as portions of Trinidad and Tobago. Out in the Atlantic, though, this is where the action is right now. And really, it's not a lot of action compared, to what we've seen in past years during the early part of August. But what you're seeing right there, that is disturbance 96L. So it's now gotten that designation, and it has a decent chance for some development, especially as it kind of drifts its way out here in the middle part of the Atlantic. Right now, most of the models are indicating that this is going to go ahead and miss the northern part of the Caribbean. But then we're going to talk about another tropical wave that's out here over the far eastern Atlantic, actually still over portions of Africa. That's going to roll offshore probably sometime Friday night into Saturday. The models are really dinging on this one big time, as it may drift westward across the Atlantic and take more of the southerly route. And a lot of these are pushing this either into the Caribbean or maybe just north of the Caribbean islands over toward the Bahamas. And we're going to go over all the different models here in just a little bit. But at this point, I'm not very concerned about what's off the East Coast. 96L, if it does develop and becomes Tropical Storm Erin, it most likely will start to slide more across the Atlantic and kind of turn more in that direction a little bit farther toward the north. But this one over here is forecast to maybe take more of a southerly track. So again, things could change a lot between now and then. And also wanted to kind of show you one of those, we were talking yesterday, we had the map that was showing how far out some of these tropical systems are and how many days it would take for it to come toward the Gulf Coast. And anything that's out here by the Cape Verde Islands is easily 12 to 14 days out. If it's moving pretty quick, you might be able to do it in 11, but we're talking about 13, 14, about 2 weeks or so before anything out in the far eastern Atlantic would come in. But this is disturbance 96L, and it is forecast to drift off toward the west-northwest and then kind of round a ridge of high pressure that's going to be over the eastern Atlantic. So right now, it looks like the Caribbean islands will be spared anything from disturbance 96L or what might become Tropical Storm Erin. And as far as the intensity forecast, it is showing some steady intensification. So most of the models are calling for a named storm here coming up about 3 to 4 days from now. And there are a few of these models that are getting close to Cat 1 hurricane status as you get out to about day 6 and day 7. So we'll watch that. But at this point, it looks like it's going to be kind of a fish storm, and we won't have to worry about it too much. So by the way, as we're talking about the days out, here's where 96L is. Let's just say that it was coming in our direction. But you see where the colors are, you're talking about 10 to 12 days out. So remember that other tropical wave that we're going to talk about that's going to come off the Atlantic coast. That's beyond 14 days out. So we've got a lot of time to watch it. And there's also a lot of time for these models to change. Or if it does develop, there's a lot of time for this to steer in a completely different direction. So the first thing I'm going to go with here is the Euro model. And the main reason why I want to go with this Euro model from 0Z. So this is the model that ran last night but processed this morning. And right now there's really not anything out there. Of course, you've got Dexter that's out here in the middle part of the Atlantic. And then you've also got 96L here. And then we're going to watch this area here off toward the east. So this is kind of what I'm thinking here as we take this through time. Let's go ahead and hit play. And you can see how 96L just kind of drifts its way off toward the west. Really doesn't become anything according to the Euro. Maybe kind of spins up a little bit here as we get into Sunday or Monday. There's that. Now there's that other low. I want to just point this out real quick. There's the other low that might be coming off the Carolina coastline right there. And this is 96L over here. So you can see nothing coming over toward the Gulf Coast. So that's good news right there. So let's go ahead and continue to push this into motion and where 96L is now starting to drift off around that ridge of high pressure and maybe be absorbed by what comes off the East Coast. So we'll take this all the way out for 10 days. Notice how the next wave starts to roll there westward across the Atlantic. Let me go ahead and stop this and kind of roll it back again. So remember that wave we're talking about coming off the African coast toward the end of the weekend? That's that low. You see where it says 1010 way down there in the bottom? Let me go ahead and bring this telestrator back up and kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at here. So right there, that's what I want to be looking at there. As it moves off toward the west, it kind of loses its identity for a little bit, kind of comes back, and then you see how it's taking a little bit more of a southerly track. And at that point, the low is there over the northeastern part of the Caribbean, and then it continues to move off toward the west. So what I want to do is I just want to stop here on day 10, because this is kind of the window between now and day 10. We can trust it. Beyond day 7, really you can't, but 10 days out, you kind of got an idea of what some of the trends are. So as we look at that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little circle here over where this other disturbance that comes in behind 96L will be. Now, the reason why I want to do this is because this is the model from earlier this morning. So I'm going to leave the circle there, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to go back model runs. So this is the previous model run, and you see there's nothing there. It's way off toward the east. Let's go back another model run. Uh-oh, there's something a little bit closer to where the circle was drawn. And let's go back yet another one. Yep, a little bit more consistency there with something perhaps in the Caribbean. Same thing as you go back one more model. And let's just finish with this one model. This one came out on the 4th, so this was 3 days ago. So there's a little bit of consistency there of maybe getting something toward the Caribbean or the Northern Caribbean. But beyond that, because remember, when we were looking at that newest model that came down, watch what happens. Let me get back over here. Watch what happens with that particular low as it moves in. So by by the time you get beyond that, you're kind of pushing this low into a threatening position. And the reason why I don't want you to really pay attention to this is because this is going out 16 days. So there could be a ton of changes here. So the reason why I stopped it at 10 days and showed you how the different scenarios came out. So this is only one forecast. There were several of them there that really weren't showing anything else that was kind of coming along. So let's go ahead and get back in here, and let's go to the GFS. And let me rewind it back here to the beginning. And so we can watch 96L, which is right there in the middle part of the Atlantic, and it kind of winds its way around that ridge of high pressure, and then kind of slides off and turns away. Now let's rewind it a little bit, and I want you to focus your attention there on the coast of Africa. And by the way, the coast of Africa is going to be right about here. So the area that we're watching is something right. Let me get rid of all these other circles. Sorry about that. There is what we're looking at least for right now. And this is that next wave that will be coming off. So let's just go ahead and forward it. And you can see how it takes a little bit more of a southerly track. And then with the GFS, it kind of gets wound around a ridge of high pressure and makes more of a turn toward the north. Looks pretty significant there going beyond 10 days, but you can see that this time, at least with the GFS, it completely misses the Gulf waters. So we got disagreeing models there. Let's go ahead and look at the Canadian one. And again, you got little 96L that will kind of roll around that ridge. Canadian isn't too impressed with 96L, but the next wave coming off the African coast also, just like the other two models, kind of trended there over toward the northeastern part of the Caribbean. And finally, with the Icon, which doesn't go quite as far out, it only goes out 7 days. You see 96L there over the middle of the Atlantic. Then there's that next wave that comes off the African continent, and it also takes more of a southerly track there. It looks like it's trending there over toward the northern part of the Caribbean. So, out for us here along the Gulf Coast, not that big of a concern right now. It's just something that we'd continue to watch. But our friends that are out there, let's say from the Dominican Republic eastward over toward the Virgin Islands, will probably be watching this system fairly closely, as the models are pretty much in agreement that we're going to have another low come off the African coast and take more of a southerly track. So right now, I'm not too concerned about 96L, which, by the way, is that one that's out in the middle part of the Atlantic. It's more of this next wave, I think, that's going to come off the African coast here over the weekend. That's going to be something we're going to be watching for probably the next couple of weeks. Now, another reason why a little more concern is because our water temperatures off the African coast are now plenty warm to at least keep a tropical system together as it moves off toward the west. But then you get a lot more concerned if something were to come maybe in this particular area here, mainly because of the warm water temperatures and also the high heat content that's in that particular area. We really don't want anything to come in that direction. But the waters there off the African coast are slightly cooler than average, and then they get much, much warmer than average as you get into the western Atlantic and the northern part of the Caribbean. But even though you're seeing below normal temperatures there, all of the temps off the African coast where tropical systems would travel have water temperatures over 26 degrees Celsius, which is that 80-degree threshold that you always hear about. And again, when you've got something that's looking that strong or that robust moving off toward the west, it is time to start paying attention. And really it is this is the time to start paying attention as we get into August and head into the busiest part of the hurricane season. Not saying anything's going to slide into the Gulf, but it's always good to stay abreast of what is happening, even though things are maybe 10 or 14 days out. It's always good to watch the trends as we go through the next several days. Wind shear has diminished quite a bit, not just over the Gulf and the Caribbean, but much of the central and eastern Atlantic. We're also seeing some lower wind shear. Now, there's a ton of wind shear that runs off the East Coast, kind of where what's left of Dexter is. Dexter's been dealing with that for quite a while. So anything that were to develop off the East Coast to the United States would also be battling a lot of that wind shear. And the Saharan dust is lifted quite a bit farther northward there over the central and eastern part of the Atlantic. So that's another thing that would be less inhibiting to our tropical system. So if some of these bigger tropical waves, as they're rolling off the African coast, if they're not encountering some of this Saharan dust and drier air and higher wind shear, that would also be an indication that some of these tropical systems might be able to hold on a little bit longer and perhaps strengthen when they get in more favorable areas, especially here over the western Atlantic, the Gulf, or portions of the Caribbean. And lowering of the wind shear and lesser Saharan dust is one of those processes that just tends to happen this time of the year. So as we get into August, that's part of the reason why we see the activity really starting to ramp up. Now remember, the peak of the hurricane season is just a little over a month away. It's right about September the 10th, and then things do start to drop off. But if you remember 2024's hurricane season, it was pretty bottom heavy. We had a lot of activity in September, October, and even in November, which was very, very unusual. So really, we're hoping that we don't have to deal with anything. If any hurricanes have to fire up, let's hope that they stay out over the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean and really don't bother anyone. But it's always best to be prepared, because occasionally things want to sneak and come for a nice visit here along the northern Gulf Coast. So be prepared as we go through the next several weeks. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and please turn on those notifications. And also remember, you can hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. Also, for any updates on 96L or this other tropical wave that's going to be coming off the African coast over the weekend, follow my social media pages, both on Facebook and X. And of course, thanks to everyone who's subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Can't wait to see you for Acadiana Weather Today tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. We'll kick off our weekend. Have a great day.